Hi guys, it's Emily Swank here with another installment of our featured provider interviews. Today we are with Anna Bullard from Chancelight Autism Services. They have many locations, so I'm going to let her tell you about that. But I love doing these interviews because I feel like it lets you learn a little bit more about the providers you might be thinking about working with. So thanks for joining us today, Anna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I'm just going to jump right in and have you tell us a little bit about you, who you are and what you guys do, services you offer, and like locations, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, I'm Anna Bullard, and I currently serve as the VP of Government Relations and the Patient Advocate for Chancelight. And I really got started when my daughter Ava was diagnosed with autism back in 2007. And when she was diagnosed, there was no ABA providers because there was no coverage. And so started working really hard to get insurance coverage, a mandate that turned out to be a lot more difficult to pass than I expected. But thankfully, we were able to pass Ava's Law in 2015, and that really required commercial insurance to cover therapy that was being prescribed, right, by the physician. So, and then we worked really hard to get Medicaid coverage. And so now, really what I do is ensure that families can access care. So, getting the law passed, getting Medicaid coverage was great, but only if it is accessible and helps families. So I'm excited that Chancelight really branched out into Georgia. And so we now have clinics that are in Savannah, Warner Robins, the Atlanta area. We have a clinic in Dunwoody, Marietta, and Decatur, and which is kind of close together, but with traffic, it's impossible for families, right, to get to some of those locations. And so we're really excited to expand in some of the more rural areas. I live in a rural area. So, having that accessibility is so crucial. So, the great thing is a lot of other providers have come to the state as well. So I'm starting to really see families access care, which is what we wanted. So yeah, it's been really fun to see it expand here.
Okay, and so what are the main services that you guys provide, and like what is the typical age range you work with?
Yeah, so we provide applied behavior analysis. That typically comes after a child is diagnosed with autism. You would get a prescription from your pediatrician or your diagnostician. It just kind of depends. You have to have that diagnosis. But we provide applied behavior analysis in the home, in clinics, and in some schools, just kind of depending on the child's needs. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we still are working through barriers with funding sources that won't allow ABA therapy in some locations. But, we know that's not okay, and we need to do what's appropriate for the kids. So I fight a lot for families to ensure they can get the care where they need it. We serve kids really as our youngest kid is probably 2. Getting diagnosed, if they can get diagnosed around 2, up until 18. A lot of times we do an assessment to determine, older children, sometimes we don't have everything they need to fully serve them. If we haven't been serving them, many times if we start serving a kid, we would serve them through their older, teenage years, especially with social skills and things like that. But we do serve kids through age 18.
Okay, awesome. And I didn't know that about you being instrumental in helping get that law passed for the insurance coverage. So thanks for that. I mean, parents everywhere have got to appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting. And I thought I was going to go in and tell everybody, hey, insurance is denying all coverage for autism. And everybody was going to be shocked and like, oh my God, let's fix it. Dealing with insurance companies and money and politics is much more complicated, as we all know.
I can only imagine. So can you tell us why the services that you guys offer are so important to the autistic children, the autistic community?
Yeah, for for research, we have some really great research going back all the way right to the 80s, and knowing that children who receive applied behavior analysis between the ages of 2 and 5, what the research shows that 50% of those children can achieve a normal IQ and enter first grade. And so really we lean on that, and really trying to push early intervention as much as we can, educating families, educating those diagnosticians and pediatricians so kids can get early access to care. But the truth is, it's meaningful and impactful no matter what age a child is. And what we see is them make progress, whether it's through communication, so teaching either sign language, sometimes, through an iPad. But of course, we want every kid to learn how to speak so they can speak for themselves, but sometimes that ends up being through another type of form of communication. But we focus on those goals that help a child become independent, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. So parents who are new to this whole process, maybe their child's just been diagnosed, what does the process look like to get that started? What should they expect?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was one of the toughest parts being a parent. You get the diagnosis and you really expect what you would get from any other healthcare diagnosis, where there's a pamphlet or there's a case manager, or, there's here's the next phase. And unfortunately, still, that's one of the things that breaks my heart so much. Still to this day, when you get a diagnosis, parents are left very confused. What do I do next? You said I need ABA therapy. Where do I get that? Who even provides that? What does that even mean? And they kind of don't have a clear path. But I always say to parents, we know that ABA is the treatment of choice, and gives results to kids. So, getting in with an ABA therapist, first and foremost, I always say, is the first thing you want to do. So, I love when I came across, your company, it was really phenomenal, because I thought, this is what parents need. They need a place where they can go and see where providers are in their area and what's accessible. So this is going to really help. I'm very excited about what you're doing, because it's going to really help parents, instead of them trying to just really Google and ask around. I mean, it's very complicated. So doing that, and, if it's appropriate, speech and language or occupational therapy for your kid. But you have to have that diagnosis. And then there has to be a prescription for ABA therapy, and I'm sure for other types of therapy as well. And really starting with that will give you a good basis for the next things. Some kids need medication, which you would, go back to your diagnostician for that, really, and those sorts of things. So, but getting that behavioral therapy going is definitely going to help a family kickstart what they need to do.
Okay, awesome. And thank you for those kind words. We really appreciate that. You spoke a little bit about your daughter, but can you tell us what's your inspiration? I'm assuming it has to do with her, but your inspiration behind getting into all of this.
Yeah, it was definitely Ava. But what I realized when Ava was diagnosed, and then they prescribed ABA therapy, and then I went to my insurance and they said, oh, autism is actually a completely excluded diagnosis. You get nothing. And we actually thankfully had family members, church members, all kinds of people who helped contribute and get us going. Credit cards, anything we could do to pay privately for therapy for Ava. And she started making remarkable progress, going from a totally nonverbal child to developing language, a child that cried 2 to 3 hours, to being able to point and say what she wants and say mama, which she had never done until she was 4 years old. So I realized that Ava really was a representation of thousands of children. And what was going on with Ava, every parent was facing in the state of Georgia and in other states as well, not just Georgia. And so that is my passion. My passion is that when you get diagnosed with autism, that you are able to access meaningful treatment and that you are able to continue to access that for your child's lifetime without continuous problems. And so I'll be fighting probably for the rest of my life. But that's really my passion.
I love to hear that, though, because so many people that are not in the autism community don't understand how much parents have got to fight for services, that it's not something
Yes.
that you would just assume you have a right to those services, that children have easy access, and so many people don't get that. So thank you. Yeah, that's what this community needs, is people that are willing to fight. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So then what would you say is the most challenging thing about what you do, and then the most rewarding?
Oh, wow. So the most challenging thing is definitely the continuous barriers with insurance. You know, we still deal with mental health parity violations. So you'll have denials because a child turns 14 and the insurance company magically thinks that means they are cured of autism, don't need treatment anymore. Sometimes you'll see them deny services in a location, or they'll put restrictions on parents even to say, hey, the parent has to do 50% of this therapy, which is crazy. I mean, so those kinds of things are really frustrating to continue, that our families face this type of, you know, restrictions that shouldn't be there, and just fighting for that. But really, I think the most rewarding thing that I do is when I have a parent call me and I can say, you know, and it happens, it happened just the other day. A parent calls me in Georgia and says, hey, my child's just been diagnosed. What do I do? And I get to say, you know, you can get services. You can get ABA therapy. You can get speech and language services. You know, let me get you to the right person. Let me get you to intake. Instead of saying to them, I'm sorry, it's not a covered service. So, you know, that is the best thing that I get to say to families.
That's awesome. And from the parent end, that's great to hear, when someone's like, I can help you. I know exactly what to tell you to do and where we can get started. That's amazing. So then my last question would just be, for parents that are maybe thinking about working with you guys, what's something you'd like them to know?
Yeah, I think that for parents who, you know, would be interested in coming to Chancelight, one of the things that we do provide that I think is valuable is a variety of services in locations. So it's not just you're boxed into your home or to your clinic. We really do assess the family and try to meet their needs. So it's always usually a combination of, you know, clinic-based services, which help especially a working family, but also transitioning some of that to the home so that, you know, you can learn some of these things and be able to help your child at home as well. So really working on that whole child, we see kids make the most progress. And then of course, you know, any family I'm willing to help, you know, I help all Chancelight families, but also willing to help any family because I want them to have a better experience than I did.
That's great. And it's so good to see where the autism industry and community is going from where it started years ago and how much progress has been made. And so that now these kids in the future, because of people like you, have better access to care and hopefully better quality of life. So that is so amazing. We love what you do. If you guys want to contact Anna, if you have more questions about Chancelight or any of their services and what they do, I will put a link to their profile on our website, Autism Assistant, in the details of the video below. You can click on that, see their information. You can reach out and contact her directly. But thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. It was always good to chat with you.
Thank you so much.